Right. Now I want to hear from you guys. So you understood the pledge, our steps that we're taking, but now I want your opinion. So we have come up with a little Mentimeter to get your opinions and views. Um, so get out your phones. Please do scan the QR code. Be as honest as you'd like. Everything is confidential. How many of you are all set and ready to go? Can I have a show of hands? Show of hands, show of hands. All the way in the back, I'm missing you. There you go. Good. Here in front, we're good? Perfect. Let's go to the first bit. I see a little thumbs up. I love that. Keep interacting with me. It makes me happy. I like to keep going like that. So let's go to the first question. What comes to mind when you think of sustainability? Please do consider this question as yourself as an individual, but also company-wise. So I know that we have some CEOs in the house. Please be as honest as you'd like. No? Environment, green, long-lasting, very important. It's here to stay. We have to make a change now. Better future, a must. Very, very, very important. Have we all answered this? Are we all good? Right. Let's move on to the second question before we start discussing this one, because I think it all comes together. Challenges. We thought about how it's important, your views on it, but what are the challenges? As you, as an individual representing the company that you work for, or you leading the company that you have brought to our event today, what are some of the challenges that you face? Yeah? What else? Yes, I see a couple of money over here. Yeah. Priority. Yep. I think I want to pause on this one for a second because I see a couple of common factors over here. Again, we're in a safe space. I would love for us to speak openly, and here we have a good variety of brands and an agency as well. So let's talk about the cost factor. Start with. We put it as one of the most common challenges up here. What do we do about it? What is it that we are facing? What are some of the blockers that we see when we're trying to introduce a new method of doing something, a greener way of doing something, a disruptive way of doing something? So what are some of the responses that we get within your organizations? Anyone? Let me bring you my mic.
So this is actually not a current, well, it is current, but I've recently moved companies, but I used to be at Vital Proteins, and they are introducing, or I think they're still introducing, a paper canister for their collagen products. So first off, it was the CapEx to build out a $10 million plus line to produce those canisters. Then there's all the research that goes into, deciding whether or not to make that change, rolling that out. And then I think one of the biggest challenges when it comes to that is that you have to put forth all of those costs before you actually see the benefit, right? And then you're depending on the consumer to continue to prioritize that sustainable move, right, from the company, and stay with the brand when it may actually be a hindrance to the consumer and user experience. So I think there's like the upfront costs, and then there's cost to the business when you may lose consumers, you may lose revenue. So I think there's a lot of different costs when it comes to considering these kinds of changes.
Thank you, Emily. Anyone relate? Anyone want to give their views on this as well? Because I do want to also talk about the consumer end of things, because I did see that it was one of the points that was brought up, that they refuse to pay higher prices for them. So how many of you do experience that issue and you see that in-house? Do you want to elaborate on that? I'd love to hear your views as well. I'm coming your way anyway.
I think it all goes back to like our profit margin, right? And wanting to keep that as strong as possible and earning, earnings per share and, just the pressure on the business and with costs being higher during COVID and now they're coming back down. Maybe we have that opportunity to look for efficiencies, but it's always been the profit margin question.
Anyone else?
I think probably as an industry, we often ask, are you willing to pay more for this? And it's such a huge leap for a consumer. So we need to probably evaluate, is that the right question we're even asking when we go to the consumer? Because it's too abstract from probably their real experience in a supermarket or whatever.
Thank you. I'm going to go back to the front because now I have microphone buddies. They can help me out. I'm going to hand over to you.
It's a really good point about us always asking our consumers, are you willing to pay more? I think the question needs to pivot to investors. Are you willing to accept a lower return for a company that's doing the right thing? And I'm not sure that that's entered the conversation. And I know that, I work in the construction business, in construction industry, which is probably the biggest polluter out there because of waste. We're taking material off of buildings and putting new material on. And the construction business in general, especially residential and commercial construction, is highly polluting. And where we're challenged isn't necessarily asking homeowners and businesses, are you willing to pay more? We're going back to our investors and saying, are you willing to accept a lower return on investment and still invest with us if we pivot and start to do things differently? And I think that Wall Street needs to be held accountable as well. In that instance, it's not just about passing the cost on to the end user.
It's a great point. We have another one right there.
So before the gentleman out there spoke, I felt like burying myself because I'm in an industry. We are in baby diapers, right? And we are definitely harming the environment and not being able to do anything. And apart from consumers being unwilling to pay more, I think consumers think it's the company's responsibility to do something about it and not theirs. So they are not even willing to compromise on convenience, on performance. So it's a very challenging situation because what do you do when, the technology is not there to come up with a completely biodegradable product. And so it is really challenging. So I think I loved your point on the investor angle, saying that, how can we look at it a little differently? But yes, I think as a company, we've also started taking some little strides of coming up with wipes which are biodegradable, for instance, or coming up with packaging which is not plastic. So yeah, I think everyone has to put a hand on their heart and start taking those little steps while it feels on the surface it doesn't matter, every step adds up.
Thank you very much for that. There's one in the back as well. I'd love to hear your input.
Hi, so I work in qualitative research and I talk to consumers all the time for many different clients on this topic. And I think everyone here is correct in saying all consumers want to be sustainable. They don't want to pay more money to have sustainable things. I think what I've seen over the years is to the point it costs more to, do good corporate sustainability policies, to develop good sustainable products. And consumers do think that it's the company's responsibility. That's why it should be baseline. It should be benchmark. This is what the cost is, and you're doing better. What I have heard when it comes to that cost side approach, it might cost the company more money. The customer might not be willing to pay more for it, but it could grow your customer loyalty. You're going to continue to go back to this brand and you're going to continue to spend more money there instead of spreading your money around. So I think like outside of the hard cost, we can also look at maybe the top line growth of bringing in customers more often, even if your margin's lower. Hopefully, potentially.
Great point. Thank you for that. One more.
Thank you. I totally agree with everything everyone is saying in terms of that whole piece of the consumer angle, but that's very focused on the point today. I think what we're doing more so in our company is trying to think about that longer term lens and understanding particularly, you know, the future of growth, whether we look at it from a profit first growth perspective versus a planet first growth. And if we consider even to fast forward to 5, 6, 7 years down the path where extreme weather events are becoming more prevalent, that's going to potentially impact consumers and their behaviors and their decisions. So we need to start investing today to be ready for that point tomorrow. So I think using that can potentially influence our investors, influence our stakeholders, and help us to be more prepared for the future as well. So.
Yeah, indeed. And I think that as a marketer, because I am a marketer, I can speak on the fact that consumers are more and more being educated to think more about the different issues happening and that they cost a bit more. So I really think that it is as well a responsibility of the company to educate those consumers, to explain to them why things are changing, but it's changing and it's increasing for a better planet. So I think that's very important as well. Thank you very much for that. I think that was very insightful. Love the honesty. Let's keep that going. It's amazing. So rank the following ideas based on their potential impact. At current, we have number 1, carbon footprint reduction initiatives. And I think that's very much what Bob talked about during his presentation. One of the reasons why Esomar is now launching the sustainability pledge and the climate pledge. And then last place, we have supply chain transparency. I do want to talk about that. Does anyone have any input to say on this based on your current experiences within your company and organization? Do you see that? Any supply chain transparency issues that you get from the products that you are ordering to manufacture your own products? Do you see any issue with the transparency in that sense? No one. I'm looking at you. Yeah.
Well, I think that, well, I actually did rank that as 4th, and not because I don't think it's important, but I think if, at least where I've worked, it's, you have to have it. Consumers are demanding it. NGOs are demanding to see behind the curtain what goes on. And oftentimes before an organization is going to launch what they've done, they've got to clean up what's back of house. And so it's not that I don't think it's an issue. I think, though, that it's a lot of companies before they embark on a sustainability pledge have already done the homework behind cleaning up their own supply chain. I don't know if other people feel like that's the case at their organization or not. So when I worked at Unilever, which has been very public with their sustainability pledge, and they've recently been sort of pointed out that within the supply chain of their suppliers there are issues, and so talk about a company that invested a huge amount of money to go after sustainability, and all of that falls apart and untangles when something is unearthed in their supply chain upstream. And so that is a real warning for organizations, that before you pledge anything, you've really got to clean up back of house, and look at upstream as well as downstream on how, what your supply chain looks like.
I completely agree with that. That's actually one of the reasons that I brought up the 4th place to begin with. Consumers are being more and more intelligent. They want to know the origin of everything they're buying, not just the front of the house, but also, is it locally sourced? What are you doing with the from your suppliers, the waste? What are they doing to their waste, and so on? So that's why I brought it up. As you know, as end clients, consumers are more and more intelligent, and there's a lot of information out there. I think we can wrap it up. Is there anything else that any of you want to share regarding your experiences? I think it's really important that Esomar is going ahead and launching the Sustainability Pledge. It's an important act that we're doing. It's something that we're reinventing from the inside, but also public facing. And we're very proud of this initiative. So as Bob said, as CEOs, as decision makers within the organizations, if you're here in the house today, do consider this. It's important for our future. Like you said from the first question, it's a must, but it's also important for our environment. And you guys are the change makers, right? So it's important that you're doing this and you're taking initiatives towards it. And if you're not a CEO, do bring it in-house, talk about it, be loud about it, because it's really, really important. So if you have any questions, or if you want to learn more about it, you can check our website. It's launched today. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Gabby.